This is week 9 of our little experiment here. And before we jump into the episode, I just want to say, it's a very serious time with coronavirus going around and a lot of things being closed, a lot of people out of the jobs. So to those people who are permanently out of the job, we want to say we're sorry. We'll get through it together. There's help on the way. To those who are still going into work, thank you. You guys are the real heroes. I know we're both still lucky enough to be able to go into work, and it's a very serious thing to keep in mind that we are still out in the open in public, and an outbreak could happen at any time. But we just gotta power through and be thankful for what we have. So, without that, with that said, let's move on to something more uplifting. What's our movie for this week, Nick?
Our movie. Well, I guess our movie isn't that uplifting, Curtis.
It's not, but we can have a good conversation about it. Actually, I did want to mention that we picked the worst week to watch this movie where these people are trapped in this house that's very cold with no windows. It's like the worst movie to watch while you're in quarantine.
I know. As I was watching it the other night, I was like, oh, yeah. We are cold and we are trapped with technology. What more could you possibly want? So this week's movie is Ex Machina, directed by Alex Garland's directorial debut. Super interesting. Nick's fun fact of the day: before this, he was actually known in the industry. He's more of a writer type, and he actually wrote 28 Days Later, and he also wrote Dread, and he wrote and directed this movie. So that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, another great directorial debut. Like, we keep talking about all these great movies that directors just come out of the gate and make, and this is definitely one of them. And then Alex Garland came out and made Annihilation after that. And then now he's got this TV show on Hulu called Devs. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's really, really good.
I have not watched it yet, but I have definitely heard a lot about it. And,
Yeah.
I mean, he just continues to climb up this ladder of success, and, like, kudos, man, kudos. Good for you, Alex Garland.
Yeah. He's consistently making this mind-blowing, like, deep, thought-provoking, like, sci-fi genre. It's so great.
Sci-fi gives you so much freedom of creativity in the genre in and of itself, so it's just
Mm-hmm.
interesting, and, like, you can really get into deep concepts. Um, you know, how did you feel about his first directorial debut, Kurt?
I thought it was genius. This power struggle between the two human characters, and the android, I guess you would call her, the artificial intelligence, Ava. She's kind of working her way to try to get out of there because she's slowly, if you think about it, becoming conscious, gaining a conscience, if you want to see it that way. We'll talk about that later. But it's really a power struggle, a chess game between all of these characters. And it's pretty genius that this was the first thing that he directed, and the acting is so incredible.
So before we get into this, I feel like we should probably summarize this movie a little bit.
Sure.
So essentially, this guy Caleb wins this trip to go visit his CEO, who is Nathan, out on his giant land. And he basically gets sent out there and gets told that he's going to be testing this AI to see if it, passes the Turing test, which is, you know, do you know that you're talking to an AI? And that's pretty much the whole premise of the movie, but there's definitely a lot more that's added into it as well. It's just very like cut dry paced version of what's going on in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it there's definitely a lot of preluding and to what's actually happening in the movie. Did you catch any of that?
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Like I felt like Caleb's character was basically just a pawn that's
Mm-hmm.
being played with by Ava and Nathan.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I don't feel like he's the main character at all.
No, it's kind of like Gatsby in a way. He's just kind of observing everything happening.
Yep. Because I felt like Ava was definitely the main character in this.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate goal was for her to escape. And Nathan even talks about that at some point in time. He's like, it's like putting a rat and giving her one means of escape, and you're the means of escape.
Hmm. Exactly. But yeah, we can't talk about this movie without talking about the incredible acting. Oscar Isaac,
Yeah.
Alicia Vikander. Yeah, it's so great. And the great directing too that went into it.
Oh, everything about it was just absolutely incredible. Um, you know, I really liked uh what do you feel about Nathan's character?
He's honestly so much fun. He has this insane god complex because he's created this AI and he thinks the world of himself. At one point, Caleb is talking to him when they first meet, and he says, "If you've actually created an AI with a conscience or something to that effect, then we're not talking about the history of man. We're talking about the history of gods." And the next day, he tells him, Nathan says that he kind of interpreted that as Caleb called him a god, and that's not what he was saying at all. But that just shows you his mind state where he's at. He thinks he's like literally giving life to the world, and he thinks so highly of himself.
You know, did you I think his character is so interesting because like you said, he thinks he's a god, but at the same time, like he has this giant flaw, like he's an alcoholic.
Oh, hardcore.
In every single scene is like in there's two scenes we don't see him with alcohol, and that's the first scene that we meet him in, and he straight up admits that he is getting over a hangover,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the very end, right before he gets killed,
Yeah, and that's only because he knew he couldn't be drinking. He had to have it wits amongst him because he knew the plan,
but he
or he
still ends
thought
up
he knew
getting
the
killed.
plan.
Right.
But
So
yeah,
there,
such a great performance and character. That writing was so great. The direction. I think what's really cool I noticed this time was his house is kind of a representation of him because the top floor when you first walk in is all glass. You see through. It's all like the nature view. You see the woods in the background. It's very transparent. But as you go deeper into the house, it's very cold and closed off. Stone walls, no windows. Has a lot to hide, just like he has a lot to hide about who he is.
you know, I think also the fact that I I think Ava is probably one of the most interesting parts of this movie in general because she m- like he Nathan straight up admits that he would like take the last AI and basically kill it and implant it into a new one and make it better.
Hmm.
And we see that towards the end of the movie. Do you think she kind of like knew that in a sense?
I think she definitely knew it because her memory gets wiped every time, but I think she definitely knew what was going on because she discovers it later on. She goes and takes the skin and all that, but I think she secretly knew what was happening, and I think that's a big theme of the movie too is how we see how society views women because he always uses a female AI and as soon as there's a flaw with it, he just destroys the body, makes a new one, puts the old mind and everything into the new one but just replaces the exterior look.
Wow. I actually did not catch that. Well, I was gonna straight up ask you, what one of my questions for you this week was how different would Ada have been had a female built her instead?
Mm-hmm. It'd probably have an entire different goal because I think he mentions a few times, Nathan, that he used the sexuality and the female look as a diversion. They compare it to like a magician's assistant, kind of distracting from what's actually happening. So there will definitely be like an entire different goal and um, like be the AI would be used for different purposes, really.
So, in which case, do you think Nathan's masculinity has any type of effect on why she reacts and does what she does?
I think so, yeah, because well, she's only been locked in this room, but she has basically Google as her mind. He runs what's equivalent to Google and uses that information to build his AIs. So she basically has all the information in the world, which is kind of terrifying. And I think she realizes that what he's doing is incredibly wrong, and that's why she's using Caleb to break out.
So, do you think she develops a consciousness or not?
This is a fun one. I know a lot of people would say she doesn't because her mind and information is all other people's thoughts. It's all from this search engine database, whatever. But if you think about it, that's how everybody gets information. That's how we learn things is through the experience of others and observing things. So I think because she has individual goals, she wants to get out and stand in that traffic intersection and watch things happen. I think she developed a conscience, but I don't think she developed human morality. I don't think that's a restraint for her, so that's kind of terrifying.
I mean, I feel like had she been exposed to somebody else other than Nathan and his manipulativeness, like I don't think she would have ended up having to kill him. And I think that plays into the whole entire concept of like the fact that he thinks he's a god, but he doesn't want to see his flaws and his alcoholism and everything like that and his
Mhm.
crutch. And it eventually got the best of him, and his creation outsmarted him.
Yeah, which is a very real danger when you're making something that has all the information in the world. That's why he was so careful for so long to keep everything.
It's Clay. It's Clay
Hi, Clay.
sneezing over there.
Bless you.
This is
Yeah, that's why he
definitely
was
Clay
so
sneezing
careful
over
for
there.
so long. At least sneezes aren't a side effect of the coronavirus, so we're good.
Nah, he's had a little cold. He's been
Well,
Yeah,
homesick.
I'm. Yeah.
He's good. He's good.
hang in there, buddy.
So if you hear anything, it's from Clay over there.
Any weird.
Tell him to hang in there.
We're social distancing. We're about 6 feet apart right now.
So it's not gay. No homo here.
Oh,
Very
it's
hetero.
fine.
These-
Just two bros, 6 feet apart.
That's Clay's moment today, folks.
That's beautiful.
My beautiful roommate over there.
My big debut.
So, where were we? Consciousness. We're talking about
Yes.
consciousness.
Yeah, I kind of said everything I wanted. So, what do you think?
Um, I think that, consciousness is, or not necessarily consciousness, but I think she's mimicking a lot of what she sees around her. I think she takes a lot from Nathan, and definitely has that manipulative aspect as well. But
Mhm.
he killed off like so many of the AIs before her, and I think she realized that. And with Kyoko, who is an interesting part of this movie, even though
Mhm.
she doesn't talk at all.
Mhm.
She takes the moment to actually like try to talk to her and find a way to talk to her, and that very small 30-second interaction that they have literally convinced her to kill him.
Mhm.
Like that's all it took. In which case, do you think that Kyoko actually had some type of understanding as to like how abusive Nathan was to her, or
I think so for sure, because Ava's able to convince her to turn on him at the end. I think that's, and you can tell from the acting a little bit too, but I think it's definitely the ending that really sealed the deal.
I okay. So we're gonna switch gears a little bit here. What was your favorite scene in this movie?
Ooh, my favorite scene. Um, I'm not gonna say the ending because that's kind of depressing right now, but probably the second meeting with Ava. Like all the conversations with Ava, I think are just really interesting in how they're framed and how they work in the movie. But the second one where he really starts to break some ground, and I think that one was the most like insightful.
I think the most interesting to me about the sessions with Ava is she like I think it's the second or third session when she starts putting on the clothes and the wig to
Mm-hmm.
make her look more human-like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like she's trying to convince him, like not only from like a uh, speech and an interaction perspective that she's not an AI, but also a physical presentation as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's all part of her manipulation game too. She knows from the minute she meets him that this is her way out. She just has to convince him to help her out, and she really uses that to her advantage.
I think Caleb was really dumb.
Oh yeah, 100%. Caleb was an idiot, and that's why he ended up getting locked in the house alone.
For like somebody that worked at this huge company was like a mastered like coder, you would think he would be smarter.
See, my thing is, he's smart. He asks all the right questions, and he knows when to doubt things. But he gets so enamored with Ava that he just lets that all fly out the window. He's like, "Well, I know it's stupid. I know it's a big mistake, but I'm going to do it because I need to help this girl out. You can't really gender an AI, but she's given a female body, so that's like what is in his mind. That's what he sees her as."
She convinces him that she's trapped
Mm-hmm.
and that she has feelings.
Yeah.
And like immediately, I don't know, like what would you do if you were in that situation? Like would you be able to see through that guys or would you end up falling into the same trap?
Oh, yeah. I don't know, man. I would definitely like. I feel like during day one, I would try to find a way out of there, like get out as fast as possible. But again, you're trapped. Like the helicopter's gone. What are you gonna do? Wander through the woods? I don't know. I really don't know what I would do in that situation.
I probably would have interacted with Nathan completely differently than Caleb did. Like Caleb was also an arrogant ass,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't ask a whole lot of questions to Nathan. Like I would have asked like a billion questions, like how did you build this? Like what was your initiative? Like, and Caleb's very arrogant in the way that he goes about everything, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm smarter than you. I'm on your level." Like this, that, and the other, and it's like, no, dude. Like you literally got outsmarted by a computer. And you even
Yeah.
set yourself up for that by talking about the whole entire chess conversation in that piece.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's literally a pawn in their game between the Nathan, uh, the talks with Nathan and everything like that, and he manipulates him in a different way than Ava manipulates him.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and Nathan's very, very manipulative the entire time. He gets Caleb to sign the NDA with no problem. He gets everything he wants out of Caleb just like that because he's so, I guess, charismatic a little bit. Like not in a good way, but he's definitely a very like forceful presence.
I wouldn't even say charismatic because he's not that like charming. He's very like distant and cold,
Mm-hmm.
but like he's the CEO, so you're like, oh, like I want to impress him,
And the way he talks makes you think he's very important too.
which we see that he's not. You know,
So go ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go. No, you.
Damn it. Okay, so I think the most interesting scene to me is like there's like this weird power shift, and it's for a split second, Caleb actually gets a little bit of power, but he doesn't actually. He just thinks he does.
Mm-hmm.
During that power outage that happens in session three, I think it is, when he Nathan asks what happens during that power outage, and asks if Ava commented on it at all or said anything, and he goes, "No, she didn't even mention it at all."
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just straight up telling him like, "Oh, she told me that you were an asshole, basically, and not to trust you, and this, that, and the other."
Mm-hmm. And that's the moment where Nathan realizes what's happening and decides to put the other camera in during the next meeting they have, and that's the like moment that sets the rest of the movie up.
Yep. How different would that like this movie have been had he just straight up been like, "Oh yeah, she tried to convince me that you're manipulating me."
Nathan definitely would have had his way at that point, I think, because Caleb didn't really have the communication with Ava at that point or the means of their escape. So Nathan would have convinced him otherwise. He would have taken him out or disposed of him in some way.
He would have been like, "This project is done. You're stupid."
Let's go for a walk in the woods, buddy. Look at the rabbits.
Right, he'd already signed the non-disclosure thing or whatever, so it's not like they're gonna find him or anything like that.
Yeah, he talks about that. He picked he picked Caleb because he didn't have any close family or relatives. He was very specific about having a disposable person.
Yep. All right, what were you gonna ask earlier?
I was going to ask how you felt about the ending, because you can kind of see it as uplifting because Ava gets what she wants, but you can also see it as terrifying because this AI with all the knowledge in the world is set free on the world. What would she do with that information? What would she do with that freedom? Like, I don't want a sequel, but I'm constantly thinking about what Ava would have done after she was done looking at all the people in the traffic intersection.
I think he left it at the perfect point.
Mm-hmm.
I think, just the fact that an AI was able to outsmart a human being
Mm-hmm.
and escape into the world, like that kind of makes you think, like, all right, where is technology evolving and like where is it going and everything like that.
Exactly. It was a very unsettling ending for humans because we have the superior being just out amongst us.
Well, I mean, honestly, somebody like Nathan that's so arrogant and so full of himself,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that was his demise in general. Like the fact that he wasn't humble in his being and everything like that. And he himself was very machine like as well.
Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Bender from Futurama, constantly fueled by alcohol.
Yeah, right. Or Rick from Rick and Morty.
I don't know, man. What so what do you think the this holds for like the future? Like do you think that AIs are going to be part of our future or
Yeah, I think it's inevitable at this point. That's kind of what I like about a lot of Alex Garland's work is it's such a realistic feeling world, but there are just little things that are evolved differently or progress differently, like the Shimmer in Annihilation and Ava in this movie. Like it's just little things that make the world a little surreal. And I could definitely see a time where AI is definitely developed that far. Hopefully, it's not um, as messed up as it is in this movie. But
well,
I think it's definitely in the future.
I think it goes back to the whole entire like who's creating it and for
Exactly.
what purpose.
Yeah.
He straight up gave her the purpose of escape and by all like use it at all means.
Hmm.
So like if you purpose an AI or create something with a consciousness, I guess you could add
Hmm.
um that like a Roomba is considered like an AI, I guess, in a sense
Hmm.
that's literally programmed to like find the dust in your house and like vacuum it for you.
Yep.
But
Yeah, I mean, technology is always going to keep progressing. That's just how humans work, barring some huge apocalyptic event. Like, they're going to find a way to start combining all these things. So we're going to have I don't want to say it too loud because whenever they're the smart devices with all the voice technology combined with like a human robot form, and then they're going to start developing consciousness, and there we go.
yeah, well, do you have anything else to add to our
No, I think that's good. Yeah.
sweet? Well, I'd like to take a moment to thank our friends at Slow Glows for letting us use their music. Thank you so much, Slow Glows. And just a PSA out there, please wash your hands
Wash your hands. Be safe out there.
and stay beautiful.
Stay beautiful, everyone.